Hey, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all to our Thursday night service. We're going to be over in Hebrews chapter 12. We're going to look at verses 14 and 15 to start out the message. The title of the message is Deliverance, the Catalyst to Holiness. Now, there's a topic that's just talked about so often in the church, holiness. Every other week you probably hear a message on holiness. You almost never hear a message on holiness. It offends people. People get mad and it just cuts us to the quick. And, truth has a funny way of doing that. It comes into our lives and, it's kind of, you'd think that God would care more about our feelings sometimes. And because we don't want to walk around all wounded and when His truth comes into our lives, it just bombs right through that and gets to the innermost part of where it needs to in our lives, because that's what we need, all of us. Amen. We need to hear God's truth and let it get as deep into our lives as possible. Now, deliverance isn't the only catalyst to holiness. There are, of course, many things taught in the Word of God that are a combination or like pieces to a puzzle of applying different things that the Lord tells us to do that brings us to holiness. But look at it this way. In an automobile, you've got an engine, you got a transmission, you got a steering wheel, whatever. You got tires, brakes. And so, if your brakes are bad, you don't go to the transmission place to get them fixed, for the most part. If the transmission's bad, you don't take it in for a ring job on your engine. Everything has a place, and so if one part on your automobile is bad, the rest of it gets compromised. The rest of it will not run efficiently or effectively. It'll run. It's like us as Christians. Just because we don't have deliverance in our lives doesn't mean that we can't be a good Christian or that we can't do things that the Lord wants us to do. Many godly saints in other churches that have never even heard anything about deliverance. But where could their lives be if there was deliverance in their lives? See, when you cut out something, ladies, you may not know a lot about engines, but you know about making things, and you throw this ingredient in there and that ingredient, and if you're making something that requires 6 eggs and you have 1, if you don't go out and get 5 more and put it in there, it's not going to be, no matter what else you put in there, it's going to be compromised. You can probably still eat it, but it's not going to be what it should be. And that's the same thing in our lives. And that's why deliverance is something that can really revolutionize, change a believer's life. Because those of us that have received it from time to time know it's not the warm fuzzies. It's not a feeling. It's not, many times you can get deliverance. I remember when I was trying to overcome the drug addiction, and the night that I got, because I backslid a lot, and the night I got deliverance was no different from any other night or day coming here to the church to get prayer for it. I went home just knowing I just had a big deliverance, and I was hopeful always. But it took months of backsliding, actually, before I got free from that. And I never could tell, as I went home. And I got home, and just because of the logistics of everything, there was a bag of Coke on the table, and I looked at it, and I said no. Now, that's the first time I'd ever been able to say no. And I not only said no, I didn't have a desire for it. Now, before I came to church, I was high as a kite. I was high driving to church. A lot of times I used to bring stuff and go home high from church. Sorry, it's just the way it is. So don't be surprised if you're praying for somebody. Oh, I can't believe you do that. Just go with the person. I'd never do that. Don't ever say never. I think God has this thing. When He hears never or ever, He just has to show us. So we go long with people. Long. because God's gone along with us. We may not realize it. But it all changed. Even though the prayer was the same, and I got up the floor sweaty and all that stuff, driving home, there was no different from any other time I got deliverance. Because deliverance isn't something that we experience to enjoy. It's something that changes our lives. Like when we get saved, we may have something in our lives that we like, but we get saved and all of a sudden we just know it's wrong. And you don't have to, I just can't believe I can't have that anymore. It's like, well, I don't want that anymore. The Lord does something. He and He alone changes us. And that's the wonderful thing about deliverance. It can do so many things that nothing else can. Fasting is good. All the other things, meditating upon the Lord, prayer meetings, getting alone with the Lord, obedience, whatever. All that stuff is great stuff, and that is a piece to taking us to holiness. But for those that do those things, another thing that will help greatly is to get deliverance. Because something happens to, and I can't explain this, why some people, after salvation still have issues. When I got saved, a lot of things changed in my life. Many things instantaneously changed. But my drug habit didn't, and my smoking didn't. But then I had other friends, so to speak, that got saved about the same time I did, or in this time that I got saved, who were doing as many drugs as I was, and they just stopped. They just didn't have a desire for it anymore. But they had other issues going on. And so I don't know why the Lord does that, but that's His business. And so, it doesn't matter if a person has a problem, a burden, we're to bear one another's burdens. It's eventually our responsibility. It says a verse later, 2 verses later, every man shall bear his own burden, but we need to reach out. And what deliverance can do for us is something that nothing else can. I've mentioned many times, but for this message, all the miracles in the Old Testament were, or I should say all the miracles in the New Testament were replicated in the Old Testament. All of them. There was nothing new that Jesus did that wasn't done in the Old Testament, except for one thing. There's only one thing that wasn't done in the Old Testament that was done in the New Testament by Jesus. And that was casting out evil spirits. This was something they didn't know anything about. They knew about demons. They knew when people went crazy or had issues. They recognized that there was an issue. We have the one example of Saul, King Saul, where David came and could just soothe, so to speak, the demon, the spirit with music. I think it more soothed Saul than anything else, kind of like a drug we may take today. In fact, probably one of the most powerful drugs we can take today is music. Music is behind everything. Every restaurant you go into, every TV show you watch, every movie you see. In fact, it is so prevalent in our lives we don't recognize it. We don't know about the music that's playing in the background. Music sells everything. Music is a tremendous door opener to the adversary also. I mean, Satan's whole life, his whole being was about that in heaven. It's not that he sang a song, he was the song. It's not that he played an instrument, he was the instrument in heaven. And so he knows a lot more about music than we do, and it's just something that we have to be very, very careful of. And I'm going to leave that alone because, you step on too many toes in a message and, leave my music alone. No problem. No problem. But we do have messages in the book room that if you're interested, also some books. But where deliverance comes in, Jesus, when He sent the disciples out over in Luke 17, they came back, and they were literally jumping. They were, the King James, the Greek says rejoicing, but if you look it up, it means they were jumping. They were woohoo! They were beside themselves because the demons were subject unto them.